for the 12th of December. So we are moving right along into a very event-filled week. Today we had the CPI report. We also got through another bond auction, and this market just kind of doing what it wants to do, which is basically go higher for now. So it reminds me, because I, for one, if we look at this reaction, if we kind of go back to this morning and what we saw in the first 15 minutes of that inflation number being released, right? The market initially was trying to go higher on that. I didn't really understand because I don't dissect these inflation reports. I know that there's a lot of components to them, right? And after a read through of the report, some analysts are saying that, hey, this was not a bad inflation report, right? Obviously, the headline number was a little bit higher than expected, 0.1 versus flat, and the ex-food and energy was right in line with expectations, right? So this to me shows, okay, well, there's some good, some bad in there, but I didn't really understand the initial move off of that report. So there was a little bit of digestion in the first hour, but there was some standout things. So what I always like to do when there's a little bit of pushback like that in the market, sometimes, and you don't get this signal every day, and it's not always the case, but sometimes something just stands out to you. And what I was noticing was that before anything else started to really move, this was right at 9:30, so you could kind of look at SPY too, rather. Whoa, that's the wrong tick. That's the wrong ticker. SPY, you could see this is not right at 9:30. We started to kind of go lower just a little bit, right? And same thing, I think, with the Qs. But the semis didn't do that. And the semis were going green, and they looked pretty strong for the day. And you can kind of see what the semis did, right? Just a little bit less volatility. So I noticed that while SPYs and the Qs were just down a little bit on the day, they did go from green in the pre-market session to red. The semis were basically moving higher, and Broadcom was doing its thing. You could see Broadcom right on the open. Like there was no red in this name today, or if it was for 2 seconds. But this immediately started to move higher once again. So this has been a real nice winner for me, and a nice catch on the turn. I mean, huge move to the upside, but really that to me kind of said, okay, the market's kind of just shaking off whatever thoughts about an inflation report that may have been a little bit not as good as what expectations were. But regardless, I always go back to the fact, you could try to super analyze some of these things. And I got a great question earlier on Twitter about hey, I don't get it. Like the inflation number it wasn't great today. Why are we rallying? And you just kind of go back to is that, and this is always the case, is that institutions drive the market. Remember going back to where we were 3 months ago. Sorry, not 3 months ago, going back to the end of October, you couldn't get anything to go up. Names that had good earnings reports, you go back to a Microsoft or a MasterCard, right? After earnings, they did not want to go up initially, right? Where was this Microsoft report, right? Microsoft did this, right? Went up and then moved all the way down and, gave back the initial move after a really good report. So sometimes the market's just not ready, and that there's not institutional buyers there. And if there's not institutional buyers, believe me, it's not going to be the retail guys that are going to carry the market. And by the way, this doesn't look like a bad setup at this point, as it's come down and digesting a little bit. After a big move. This is what usually happens, by the way, kind of more of like a textbook case, is that after a name moves up like this, the momentum comes out a little bit and then it begins to rebuild again. So and holding the 20-day moving average, right? And that's what I saw last week with the semiconductors. If you've been watching my end of day videos, you know that the semiconductors were, have been a big trade for me. I went long the semiconductors. I was watching them in here once they came in and tested, because I noticed that they filled the gap, right? We did this whole analysis last week, and they filled the gap, and then they kind of there was a nice hammer bar, right? And then a little bit of a setback, right? So sometimes it's not clean and it's not perfect, and you have to be patient. But this made out to new highs, and it's kind of funny because I saw a bunch of people posting, "Oh my God, the semis are back to new highs," and like, hey, we caught the turn beautifully. And again, just to rehash that, by the way, what was really revealing, of course, was the technicals and that I just went over about filling the gap and then starting to move higher. But I really went through one by one with some of the components of the semiconductors, and I noticed that, hey, it was like an MCHP looks pretty good, right? A synopsis started to turn higher, right? So there was a lot of strength that was building, bubbling up, and you couldn't really see that. Sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper than the biggest name, because Nvidia is kind of surprising a little bit, and some people are getting frustrated, I think, if you're just watching Nvidia, because it's kind of been doing this for a few months, and where it's been going sideways, right? And there's just other names that are acting better, like a Broadcom. So if you're not familiar with the concept of going through the individual names and so forth, then that's I hate to give myself applause for this, but it's not just me. Other services do this for you too, where they're basically saying, hey, maybe watch an AMD or a Broadcom. There's better things going on right now than just Nvidia. Now, of course, we want to continue to watch the leaders, because I think Nvidia will eventually get back to the highs. But for now, it's been doing a lot of consolidation, and I don't really have a great reason other than, hey, maybe there's just a lot of competition out there for Nvidia, right? Everybody knows how much, right? Traders obviously know how much money Nvidia is making, right? But so do their competitors. They're like, hey, if they're making all this money, we need to kind of catch up to them, right? So there's a big catch-up trade going on right now. That's one of the thoughts. But yeah, I mean, right now, Nvidia is not where you're getting the outperformance, even though because the group is super strong, and there's other plays right now. So you can be patient with this, and I have a small position in Nvidia in my long-term account, but I will wait until it starts to show a little bit of momentum. And remember, the week before that, I had tried to go long Nvidia in here, and I got rid of it once it kind of broke in here, and I haven't returned back to it because I've been finding better opportunities, right? Such as even go, and I talked about this, I think, in yesterday's video. Look at how much better just going long the whole ETF is than sitting in the Nvidia position, right? Here's Nvidia over the last week. It's done nothing. If you went long the ETF that contains Nvidia and a bunch of other companies, you've been handsomely rewarded for that. All right. So I spent some time there because I think really that's where there's been some good opportunities. Also, the cyber names, they've been acting really well. Palo Alto made another new high today, really strong. I'm in this one in my TTG trend portfolio, and I'm in CrowdStrike both in my trading account and in my TTG trend portfolio. Does it look overbought here? It does. But there's no sell signal, and it continues to just grind higher. There was a quote that I was saying at the end of the day, the money, it's sorry, what's the big book that everybody reads? Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. I can't think of the guy's name, and I feel embarrassed that I can't think of the guy's name right this second. Here, I'll get it for you because I just quoted it, and it will drive me crazy. But Jesse Livermore, right? Sorry, it's been a long day. But Jesse Livermore said the money is made in sitting, right? And not in trying to trade something like this that is just trending, right? That is just continuing to grind higher. So it's tough. It's one of the hardest things to just sit in a position that is doing this and getting more and more overbought. But if you're taking profits along the way, right? And I did take another profit target in CrowdStrike today, somewhere in here, 250, right? And again, this is one where I've gotten back involved, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of other things that are starting to move up. Like I bought some STNE today, right? This is another one where had a humongous move, has been pulling back a little bit right into the top of value. Some other names that I think are acting really well is ISRG, right? That's also starting to do a little bit of a cup and type of handle here, right? Look at how well it's been holding the top of value. right? Not breaking the 20-day moving average, and this was my play that I put in our Substack this morning. So those are a couple names, and then looking over to the financials, I was just talking about the private equity names. Also, you kind of have a little bit of a cup and handle going on. So again, I could talk about 5 or 6 other software names because I know those have been acting really well, right? And you could, of course, I thought that the group really handled the Oracle results pretty well, right? Oracle was down 12% today, right? So it's probably going to be dead money for a bit. But the overall group still remains strong. So again, you could go through individual names, right? Dual had a big day. That broke out to new highs, didn't close on the absolute highs. But again, just like I did with the semi group, you can go long IGV. It's a little bit harder. It's of a ETF because it's a price at $398, but you could kind of use this as a proxy just to tell you that there's a lot of strength. Also, what's been super impressive is just the Dow. Right, the Dow continues to grind higher. This was one of my most interesting charts to watch. I put this out on Sunday on Twitter, and this just continues to ascend higher. So for tomorrow, first of all, I will be out the majority of the week, so you won't get any end of day videos from me for the rest of the week. I'm taking off a little bit of time. My thought is for tomorrow's Fed meeting, I don't think that you're going to hear anything new. I don't think that Powell has any reason to say anything new, right? From what he's been communicating, there's really been no in between. There's been really it's not difficult interpretation. They want to see inflation get down to their 2% rate. We're not there yet. So whether the market is getting ahead of itself, pricing in Fed cuts, right, that might be an issue. But I don't think that you're going to hear any surprises from him tomorrow. I think it's going to be the same thing. But I'll still be listening to see if he says anything new. But that's my guess for tomorrow. Guys, have a great night, and thanks for watching these videos. And I'll be back with these on Monday.